Wysteria, energy, twister. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Legends of Britany, and these are more like the legends of people of Brittany, I suppose. The Clerk of Rohan. Jean de Rohan, daughter of Alain Fifth of the name, Viscount of Rohan, married in the year 1236. Matthew, Signor of Bourbon, son of René, Constable of Naples. Breton popular poetry has in many ballads recounted the adventures of Jean and her husband, one of which is as follows. At the age of 13, Jean consented to be married, but she desired that she herself should be allowed to choose her husband. Accordingly, the cavaliers and barons of the district were invited to pay their court to her, and she fixed her affections upon the Signor of Bourbon, a valiant noble with large possessions in Italy. He was loyal and courteous, and when the pair were wedded, their happiness seemed perfect. At this period, the war in Palestine against the infidels was agitating the whole of Europe. The Signor of Bourbon decided to join the Crusaders, but his wife was by no means anxious that he should leave his home. But his principle was noblesse oblige. I am of the most noble blood, he said. Therefore it behoves me to be the first to lead the way. He confided the care of his estates and his affair in general to his wife's cousin, who was known as the Clerk of Rohan, and begged him to look well after Jean and his little son. Then, having bid farewell to them all, he mounted his horse and rode away to the wars. Jean was inconsolable. For days she wandered about the chateau, carrying her baby boy in her arms and sobbing. All the domestic circle seemed disturbed at the signor's departure, except the Clerk of Rohan, to whom Count Matthew had so trustingly confided the charge of his affairs. The signor had declared that he would return within a year's time. A year passed, however, and no news of him had been received. Now, the clerk was a perfidious and wicked schemer, and one morning he and Jean were in conversation. He hinted that the year within which the signora promised to return was now gone by, and that the war in which he had been engaged had come to an end. He made no secret of his passion for the lady, but she on her part turned upon him angrily, saying, "It is the fashion nowadays for women to consider themselves widows, knowing well that their husbands are alive. Go to, miserable clerk. Thy heart, it is full of wickedness. If my husband were here, he would break thee in little pieces." When the clerk heard this, he went secretly to the kennels. There he slew the signor's favourite greyhound. Taking some of the blood, he wrote with it a letter to Count Matthew, telling him that his wife was most unhappy because of an accident which had occurred, that she had been hunting the deer, and that in the chase his favourite greyhound had died from overexertion. The signor duly received the letter, and his reply told the clerk to comfort the lady, as he was quite able to replace the hound. At the same time, he desired that hunting should cease for the present, as the huntsmen seemed unskilful in their conduct of the chase. The wicked clerk once more sought the lady. "Alas," said he, "are you losing your beauty by weeping night and day? I will know how to recover my beauty when my husband returns," she replied. "Do not cheat yourself," he said. "Surely you can see by this time that he is either dead or has taken another wife. In the East there are many beautiful girls who are wealthier than you. If he has taken another wife," said the lady, "I shall die. And if he be dead, I ask for naught but death. Leave me, miserable wretch. Thy tongue is poisoned with deceit." When the clerk had sufficiently recovered from the second rebuff, he betook himself to the stables, where the signor's horse, the most beautiful in the county, stood there, champing in the stall. The wretch, drawing his poniard, thrust it into the noble steed's entrails, and, as he had done in the case of the greyhound, took some of the blood, and wrote once more to Count. "Another accident has occurred at the chateau," he said. "But, my dear Signor, pray do not trouble yourself on account of it. When your wife was returning from a feast in the night, your favourite horse fell and broke two of its legs, and had to be destroyed." The Signor replied that he was grieved to hear of the circumstances, and that in order to avoid further mischances of the sort, it would be better that his wife should frequent no more feasts. At that time the perfidious clerk sought the lady. On this occasion he threatened her with death if she would not be his, but she replied in the most spirited manner that she loved death 1,000 times better than him. At these words he could not contain his rage. Drawing his dagger, thrust fiercely at her head. But the lady's guardian angel turned the stroke, and the weapon struck harmlessly against the wall. She fled from the room, closing the door behind her, and she went whereupon the clerk rushed downstairs to the nursery where her child was quietly sleeping in its cradle, and seeing no one beside it, stabbed the slumbering infant to the heart. Then he wrote to Signor, "Hasten your return, I beg you, for it is necessary that you should be here to establish order. Your dog and your white courser have perished, but that is not the worst. Your little son, alas, is also dead. The great sow devoured him when your wife was at a ball with the miller for gallant." When the Signor received this letter, he returned at once from the wars, his anger rising higher and higher with every homeward league. When he arrived at the chateau, he struck 3 times upon the door with his hand, and his summons was answered by the clerk. "How now, evil clerk?" shouted the infuriated Count. "Did I not leave my wife in your care?" And with these words he thrust his lance into the clerk's open mouth, so that the point stood out at the nape of his neck. Then, mounting the stairs, he entered his wife's chamber, and without speaking a word, stabbed her with his sword. The ballad then goes on to speak of the burial of the victims of the wicked clerk. The lady, dressed all in white, was laid in her tomb by the light of the moon and the stars. On her breast lay a little son, on her right the favourite greyhound, on her left the white courser, and it is said that in her grave she first caresses one and then the other, and the infant, as if jealous, nestles closer to his mother's heart as they lay together in the grave. Well, that is quite the story. I thought it was going to go the same way like the Tale of Rhiannon, but I mean, it's very similar to the Tale of Rhiannon, right? But not the same. Though very interesting indeed, I have to say. Thank you so much for listening to this part. I will see you again for the next part, hopefully, and many, many blessings.
Wysteria, energy, twister.